Hello everyone and welcome to BCP Council's live question and answer broadcast with me, Drew Mellor, leader of the BCP Council. This is our new extended monthly format where we deep dive on a specific topic for 30 minutes. Then I have 30 minutes of general questions as well. Really pleased to be introducing this. We've got, since the beginning of the year, we've seen an ongoing rise in the cost of living, and it's an important subject for us to take some time with now. From how much we pay to fill up our cars, the bill for our weekly shop, right through to the cost of keeping our houses warm this winter. Many of us are now feeling those additional financial pressures and the worry they naturally bring as prices continue to go up. So we thought it'd be really helpful if we use today's broadcast to explain what BCP Council is doing to support you, its residents, through the current cost of living situation, and also to hear from you in terms of what extra support we feel is potentially needed. Firstly, I think it's really important to recognise that BCP Council is here to help. We want to let you know what support we can offer, let you know where to go for financial guidance, energy bill support and access to food advice. The rising cost of living is concerning, but you are not facing it on your own. Help is at hand. So firstly, can I just say thanks to all of those who've sent questions in on the topic already. We've got an expert panel with us today, so I'll introduce those briefly. We're very lucky enough to be joined today by Tom Lund, who's Head of Operations and Service Delivery at Citizens Advice BCP. Also, we've got Erica Sloper, who is Charity Project Manager at Poole Waste Not Want Not Charity, and Daisy Carr, who's our Community Food Coordinator at BCP Council. And you'll be hearing from all our guests later in the session. So for those who are new to these live Q&A sessions, following about 30 minutes of questions on support for cost of living, our guests will leave the broadcast and you'll be able to send me live questions on whatever topic you choose. So thanks again for watching. We're going to play a short video now giving an overview of the cost of living situation, and then we'll be right back to answer your questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That's really useful to see. So let's get into our question and answer session now. So we've got the pre-submitted questions first, which we'll go through and have an opportunity to introduce the panel properly. So we could go to, I believe we've got a question from Tracy on the cost of living regarding household support fund and what other regular support is available. So that question there. Perhaps I could bring in Tom. Tom, perhaps you could introduce yourself and then start to answer that question. Hi, Tom.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Tom from Citizens Advice. And yeah, in specific response to your question, Tracy, yes, we do anticipate the Household Support Fund opening again. We are, at Citizens Advice, we're working very closely with our colleagues at BCP Council. At the moment, we expect a new round to go live around about early November time. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of work that's gone into the past two Household Support Fund rounds. And since it started in winter last year, Citizens Advice specifically have supported around about 3,000 households, possibly more than that, with grants to support people struggling with increased living costs and increased energy bills. We'll get the information out to everybody as soon as possible. But in the meantime, we're continuing to provide some regular support for both individuals and for households through our Let's Talk Money work, our benefits work and our income maximisation work, including those who are dealing with debts at the moment.
Great, Tom. Thank you. Yeah, really pleased that it's the government's extended it until I think it's until 31st of March, which is helpful, and we'll also have our web pages up by the start of November. In that question, I think there was sort of a broader question that Tracy was asking as well around what other regular support is being offered for local residents other than advice, as the practical support bit. So probably a good opportunity. Daisy, could I bring you in regarding access to food partnership?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working on the Access to Food partnership, and that's a partnership between the council and public health and the community and voluntary sector, all working together to make sure everyone can afford to feed themselves and their family nutritious food all of the time. So we've been working together over the past 2.5 years to build a really strong community food network that can help people access food. So we're in a situation at the moment where all sorts of people are going to find that the money isn't stretching as far as it used to. And if you find yourself worrying about affording or accessing food, then there is support out there. So as part of the work of the partnership, we've created the Access to Food map. And on that map, you can find it on bcpcouncil.gov.uk/access to food map. And on there, you've got 60 different community food projects. There's, everybody is very familiar with food banks, but there's also social supermarkets like Poole, Waste Not, Want Not. Erica is obviously here and can share more about that. Community stores, community fridges, and there's loads more community meals, food parcel projects, workshops, growing spaces, and more. So there is an awful lot of support out there for people if they are worrying about accessing food specifically.
Great, thank you. That's absolutely brilliant to hear. Perhaps Erica, I could bring you in now to perhaps introduce yourself and then also the work of Poole, Waste Not, Want Not. Thank you.
Yeah, hello there, thank you. Yes, I'm Erica, Poole, Waste Not, Want Not. We're a charity who support people for the longer journey. We work alongside food banks, but we're about making your money go further. So if you are in crisis and you're unable to get a food voucher at that moment, come along to us in Poole High Street, and we'd be able to support you with either extreme parcels for food poverty or help you with reduced food, 75% cheaper than any other supermarket. And on top of that, we do help with household support forms filling out as well. So if you really are stuck, do come along and we can signpost you if we can't help you ourselves. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Erica. Brilliant. Okay, so let's go to the to our next question, and this is from a team of volunteers who support Gateway Church Poole regarding Warm Bank available. So we've got a Warm Bank available every Thursday and Friday. How do we get the word out to the community that we want to help? Do BCP have any funding options available to support such hubs? Perhaps I'll kick off on that to start with. So our communities team are compiling a list of community spaces that are offering to be warm welcome spaces, and we're also, for instance, a number of our leisure centres and other premises are offering warm welcome spaces as well across the conurbation. So fantastic Gateway Church, fantastic community of people. Really interested in helping the wider community. So we'll add you to this list. We're also really keen to hear if there are other organisations that would like to be added to this and feel that they could offer something. Please do let us know. So I'm just going to pop my email up for now, but drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. So if anybody would like to, approach us and add themselves to that list, that would be great. So, our communications plan is focused on how we share this information more broadly, and we realise that now's the time to do it. It's getting colder, so we're working on that at pace, and we will continue to work with residents and frontline workers to deliver that. Tom, anything else in terms of that would be helpful to add to?
Yeah, so I know obviously a lot of our colleagues are looking at compiling the list for warm welcome spaces, but I'm also aware that through partners such as Community Action Network and through their forums, and especially through their Trusted Voices forum, there's a lot of conversations going on about how we can support and fund warm welcome spaces as well. So, packs that can be provided to families and households through those warm spaces, so that they can stay warm when they're not in the warm space as well.
Great. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, and I think just more broadly in terms of what council support is available for organisations like this, we're really trying to ramp up something called our asset-based community development or strengths-based, so trying to work out where there's real strength in the community, volunteer organisations, and how we can become a more enabling authority, so we can help support and facilitate and strengthen some of that amazing volunteer work that's going on. We're looking at the moment about buildings, whether we can use some of our surplus buildings. Since we've come together, we've got more surplus buildings. Can we use those to support the community, or capital grants effectively? So we are looking at a myriad ways of actually trying to really turbocharge this going forward. But more specifically, I think Tom and our communities team would be able to say what effectively we're doing at the moment. Okay, thanks Tom. So let's go to our next question, which is coming from Facebook. Okay, so it's about how about for once helping those just above the benefits threshold who actually pay for council tax. Okay, Lindy, that's one for me probably. I think actually what we have been doing for the last 2 years is doing our very best to freeze council tax. So we 2 years ago we freeze council tax in Christchurch, and we did put forward the second lowest council tax rise across the country at 1.55%, and we only did that to because we needed to harmonise council tax. And last year we froze the core rate of council tax. So we're actually genuinely leading. I don't know anybody in the country upper tier authority, so looking after children and adults services, that has put council tax up less than us in the last 2 years. So we are trying desperately hard to do that, Lindy. And we think one of the reasons we want to do that is because that's for everybody who pays council tax. So and then we've got questions later around effectively our pricing structure for some of our services, but we think it's really important to keep core council tax as low as possible. So if you choose to take other services, then those services should be paid for by those people. That does enable us to keep putting council taxes as low as possible. So hopefully that shows what we are doing. We're genuinely leading the country in terms of low council tax policy. Okay, so we've got a question about wind turbines. Will BCP and Dorset Council revisit looking into wind turbines, whether at land or on sea? They're in use everywhere else in the country, and indeed the world. Yeah, thanks, Stuart. I think it's a really important question. So massively in terms of a broader piece around renewable energies. I think we've seen from Putin's war in Ukraine how energy has become a real weapon in that war. So it's how places can become more self-sufficient and countries can become more self-sufficient. It's really important. Massively aligns to our real push on our green and sustainable agenda. So we in our last budget we put £20 million of capital money available for our Green Futures Fund. So that's to invest in projects, and a lot of that may well be renewable carbon saving projects and renewable energy. So we're really trying to do a lot. Specifically, I think you were specifically talking about wind turbines. There's no plan at all around wind farms that's on our table at the moment. So it's not something we're looking at. I think we've been quite clear that the previous about 5 years ago plan for a tourist destination that was it wasn't the right place for wind, but we are doing a lot of things in terms of if something else comes forward we'll look at it or in a wider Dorset context, but we're really clear about trying to keep that tourist space and those tourist views. We are doing a huge amount in terms of solar farms. We're doing a lot in terms of hydrogen as well. So we are trying to look at a myriad ways we can develop that. But specifically in terms of your question around wind farms, no, it's not. Okay, so what we'll do now, perhaps I'll just go back to our guest to say that's the end of the submitted question. So if I'll bring a couple of guests in while we look through some of the questions that just come through and work out who they'll be best placed to. So perhaps I'll come to Daisy first. If you could perhaps just talk more broadly about anything we haven't answered in those questions that you would like to add, and then we'll move on to the other questions. Thank you. Hi, Daisy.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen in the comments there's some chat about what's the criteria for a referral for a food bank voucher. Seen that the responses there, and I think the thing with the food bank voucher is that is about getting emergency food support. So whether that's going through the crisis advice phone line, which is what was referred to in the comments there, but there's also, going to Citizens Advice, you can get referrals from your GP, from schools are often referrers for food banks as well. So if you're in a situation where you need emergency food, or you do not have anything in the cupboards, please do reach out and get that referral. There are also different types of projects that can support. So as Erica said, social supermarkets and community stores do that great work around making the money go further. They work on a membership model, so really great ways of making sure that there is a subsidized shopping experience. And then you've got things like community fridges, and community fridges, it's all about reducing food waste. So there are those they're fridges in public spaces, often in libraries, but not always, and they want to make sure that food doesn't go to waste in a neighborhood. So anyone can take food from a fridge, and anyone can put food into a fridge. So some great stuff there. And then the other thing I really wanted to share was that you might be sat here thinking, how can I help? So there are some really key things that I think will really help our communities at the moment. So the first thing is to check in on your friends and your families and your neighbours, just to see how they're doing. It might be that you might be in a position where you can get people around for dinner, or just checking in on how they are. The second thing is to spread the word about the support that's out there. So please do share the access to Food Map and the different types of support that people can get when it comes to accessing food. And then you may want to donate to your nearest community food project. And there's a few different ways that you can donate. So the first is obviously around food. There's a great app called Bank the Food app, which alerts you every time you walk into a supermarket to tell you what your nearest food bank needs, to remind you to donate at the baskets at the end of the supermarket. Or you might have an allotment or a garden where you want to donate surplus food. We love the thought of local food being shared around our communities. If you're in a fortunate position of being able to donate financially, food, all sorts of community food projects really benefit from that, because it means they can buy in those really specialist items that people need. You might want to volunteer. Please do get in touch with your local community food projects volunteer. And at the moment, lots of projects are looking for space. So if you have any kind of storage space, or you want to be able to offer that kind of space for projects, that please do come and let me know. You can get in touch with me through the access to Food Map. But I think ultimately the big message here is, if you are in need of to access food, please do reach out for help. There is a lot of support out there, and there's all the wraparound support that comes with that too. So please do reach out to Citizens Advice and other groups too. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Daisy. A huge amount going on there. Okay, we've got a question at 12:34 from Nikki Latham. So perhaps one for you, Erica. Can anybody go to Waste Not Want Not effectively? So perhaps you could answer that, and then anything else that you would like to put in. Hi, Erica.
A members-based social supermarket. But as we all know, the cost of living crisis is hitting more and more people, even people that are working. So I would advise people just to come into the shop and have a chat, because we will not turn anybody away if they are needing support. If you are working and you're not on benefit, there are still things that we can do for you. So always ask, like Daisy said, there's so much out there that we can help you with. It's just asking that initial question, and if we can't help you, somebody will. So please don't struggle with energy or food. We are all here to support you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we've got a question from 12:39 from Richard Watts. Everything you have on offer is amazing, but it's all reactive. How are BCP planning on getting ahead of a crisis before these reactive measures are no longer sustainable or suitable? Richard, yeah, thanks. And I think that's a really valid question. I've got a couple of things to say to that. In terms of a council more generally, the scale of the challenge we've had to put, we've been through since February because of cost of living, because of the war in Ukraine. It's effectively impacted our budget £25 million this year and £30 million next year, which is huge. So it has been something that we have been reactive to, but it is also something of such huge scale. It'd be quite difficult to be more ready to deal with. I think we saw through COVID, didn't we, that when you've got a real big challenge, the best parts of that were how the community came together. through our amazing community action network, all the volunteers that got involved in that space. So what we're trying to do is to really build on that. I talked a bit briefly earlier on about talking about, strengths-based processes and trying to work out where you've got parts of the community who are fantastic, want to do some help, and how we can enable them to do more and support them better. So we're really trying to do that. We think that should enable us to be better at reacting to these situations going forward. I think we are better at reacting to this because of the work that's happened through COVID and the close working relationship with all of these, all of our partners as well. But you're absolutely right. We need to carry on with that. So we're just, we're really working closely with our voluntary and community sector to ensure we can respond to future demand. But thank you for your question. Okay, Tom, perhaps I could bring you back in and say if there's anything more generally that you wanted to talk about. Amazing work Citizens Advice Bureau are doing, the scale of it as well. I think we've had some people comment below, just how impactful it's been. So perhaps you could just talk a little bit more about Citizens Advice BCP and how we can utilise that. Hi, Tom.
Sure. So in the past 3 months, we've worked with almost 6,000 people, predominantly from Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. One of the things that I think we've recognised at Citizens Advice is that average income working households and those who earn just above benefit thresholds do need support now too. And our advice isn't just restricted to people who claim benefits. And we're increasingly being accessed by working households due to increased living costs. The things we can help people with, I think people think it's all advice. It's not. It is practical help. We do look at budget planning with people. We work with people to help them find ways to maximise income. And that isn't just through making savings. It could be through accessing other charitable grants, so in addition to household support fund, but also finding ways in which their incomes can be stretched further. So we've got a range of projects ranging from projects that raise awareness about smart meters. We hear a lot of negativity around energy companies using smart meters, but we've kind of turned that on its head and working with households to look at how a smart meter can help them budget. Can help them realise when they may need support from schemes like the Household Support Fund. One of the challenges that I know people do face, nationally, we're dealing with, we're dealing with 2 people almost every minute. It's relentless. And I know one of the concerns that people have is how can I reach Citizens Advice and how can I get some support from Citizens Advice? We really do appreciate people being patient on our phone lines. So when they contact us through our phone line, we do ask people, be a little bit patient. It may take a while. It may take a couple of phone calls. Locally, we would say to households locally, we do have our drop-in services. So at Bournemouth Town Hall Civic Centre, we have a drop-in service. We have a drop-in service at Christchurch Library. We have, or we'll soon have, a drop-in service at Poole Library once the refurb has been completed, so early November. We'll be over there. We've got the community advice vehicle. So this is basically a mobile advice van that I know many of our communities will have recognised since sort of driving down the streets with our sign on the side of it. Anybody that goes to our website can see what the rota looks like. We're not just in the typical places. We're at Castle Point on certain days. We're over at Asda and Poole on certain days. It can go everywhere and anywhere. And our guys on the van can be often the first port of call for people who need help and need support. So I would always say to people, maybe if you're struggling to get through by the phone, either visit one of our drop-ins or go to the Get Advice section of our website. So clicking on the Get Advice means that you can fill out a web contact form and one of our advisors will call you back as soon as possible. The wait time for that is at most a couple of days for somebody to get back to you. So yeah, and it's really, you know, for us, it's about helping people and campaigning for people. I know people were concerned about support for carers. So, you know, we want to do advocacy for people. We want to raise issues through our research and campaigns work as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Tom, absolutely brilliant, and I think every member of the community really appreciates that advocacy you bring in. We're hearing a number of comments about some things for like prescriptions, effectively, which are more at a national level, obviously, rather than a local level. So you know, hearing these is helpful because then, you know, through our political channels or through your channels, we can then, you know, raise those more nationally. Okay, so we've got a quite a lot of questions again, you know, about electricity and warmth, effectively. So it'd be, you know, rather than any specific questions, it'd be helpful to just talk about their, you know, more generally. You know, we talked about these warm hubs, you know, which we've offered. So we make a real effort to put more of that on there. Do any of our panel have anything specific to say about the number of people that are really struggling in terms of the, you know, the heating the homes and the cost of electricity? Okay, so anybody in particular want to come in, or we just effectively refer back to the warm places that we're putting out? Okay, fine. So okay, so then I've got a question from Alex Digby West at 12:52. So perhaps we could bring that up. It's a little bit. It's about it mentions the war in Ukraine and windfall tax, effectively. So, but the cost of living crisis was going to happen before the war in Ukraine. Why isn't there a windfall tax on the fossil fuel companies reporting billions of profits, while those at the bottom do more than struggle and foot the government's borrowing bill? Yeah, thanks, Alex. I think it's an interesting question. Quite a lot in that. I think it's I slightly disagree. The cost of living crisis was going to happen before the war in Ukraine. We set our budget in February. We announced that in January. You know, since that point, since that war in Ukraine, we've had £25 million, which is about 10% of our budget, extra costs this year, and a bit more next year. We think it's going to effectively be £30 million next year. So I would say the cost of living crisis is about Putin's war in Ukraine. There has been a windfall tax. There was a windfall tax originally, and I think in the last couple of days there's been more talk of that. So the government's got it under review, and the huge amount of support that's coming, and and I appreciate your point around government borrowing, but it is government borrowing to support the energy support, effectively, which I think is over £100 billion expected to be. So it's a balance, isn't it? The government are trying to support, they're trying to make sure that is coming through in terms of households being able to get that support now, and they are reviewing effectively the windfall tax, and I would certainly agree with that position, because I think that there has been some excessive profits through this unforeseen circumstances, and we need to make sure it's a balance between the government supporting and also those industries supporting as well. So we certainly do that. Okay, right. So I'm just going to have a look back at. We're nearly at the end of this session, so if you just give me a second, and I'll have a look at see if we've got any extra questions we want to. Perhaps we could also put time to flag some of the things we're doing as well. So I know, for instance, our community cost of living help. Perhaps we could bring that up, that link back up. So to talk about a lot of the things we're doing. A lot of this is going to be how we're effectively trying to represent a lot of what's happening in the wider community, and a lot of the voluntary networks we've got with us today, and others. We are, the government is responding in terms of the extra money that's going in now, and we're trying to work very hard to work out how we can actually support that whilst also balancing our budget post the cost of living pressure. So please have a look at that. Please keep having a look at that. It'll be useful. Guys, we've just got a minute or two left, so perhaps I could go around, just see if there's any closing thoughts from you, or anything you want to flag. We could put on our channels now in terms of links, etc. So the order of my screen, I'll go first to Tom.
Yeah, so I think, just to summarise, I mean, there is support out there. There is quite a lot of support out there. Just going back to your previous point, Drew, with specific help with energy bills. We do work very closely with organisations like Ridgewater Energy. Like I mentioned earlier, we work very closely with the water companies as well, to support people who are concerned about or are experiencing debt with their water companies as well. We look at the Healthy Homes daughter initiative, so we work in connection with organisations who can help people with insulation, help people with boiler repairs. And again, the easiest way, a lot of the time, for people to get through to these countless organisations that are there within BCP to support people and support people in a very non-judgmental way, is essentially, come through to us at Citizens Advice. Our advisors are fantastic about finding the right source of information, the right source of advice for people so that they can get that practical help that they need.
Brilliant. And Tom, thank you so much for being a part of this today, and really appreciate all the work you and your team are doing. So thank you. Comes up now to Daisy Carr. So Daisy, perhaps anything else in closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I really just want to reiterate is that if you are sat here thinking, I really need help accessing food, there's 3 kind of steps that we really want to encourage people to take for that. So the first is, as Tom said, maximising your income, seeing what grants are available, giving Citizens Advice a call, checking what government grants like the energy rebate you're eligible to, making sure you're getting the benefits you're eligible, especially if you might not have ever applied for any of them before. And as Tom mentioned, we're looking at where you can save your monies on your bills and getting help from groups like Ridgewater Energy. The second thing is then looking at wraparound support. So especially if you're in a crisis situation, it's so good to talk to a friend, a relative or a community member. You do not have to go through this alone. If you don't have people around you who you can talk to quite so readily, then social prescribers at GP surgeries, they sit down with you and work on things that matter to you. They can give that coaching support. And then the third thing is, yes, go and find your community food project that works for you using the access to Food Map. So maximise your income, look at that wraparound support and find food support by the access to Food Map.
Great, thank you again. Thank you so much, Daisy, for your time today, and all you and your team are doing as well. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'll bring in Erica. Erica, if you could come back, anything else you'd like to add before we close out this session? Thank you.
Yes, hello there. Yes, just to reiterate everything they've both been saying, but on top of that, if you do live on your own and you actually can't get out, always remember that we will be able to deliver your food to you. It's not all about coming out to look for help. Sometimes people can't get out due to ill health, mental health issues. They're very anxious. A lot for somebody to step over a door to ask for help. Maybe it's better if they just speak to us on the phone. So anything that's best for you, make sure you ask. We are always here. It's about listening to you and acting on your needs. Everybody is individual in this. No one fits each criteria. We will support you with whatever it is you need. So just ask for help. Look for the map. Go on our Facebook page. There's so many people out there that are here to help you, and we will listen. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Erica. Thank you, everybody. We all massively appreciate your support and your help and your time today. So thank you. And we'll move now into our second part of the session, which is our more generic BCP Council session. So please put forward comments more specifically for BCP Council rather than the cost of living questions, and we'll get through those. We've got a few already been submitted, so we'll do, as we normally do, we'll do those first. So we've got a question from Pushka Dalewood. Are you looking to reduce street lighting at all to save energy? Okay, so it's slightly connected to the cost of living piece. So we have had quite a lot of energy costs, and our bills have gone up significantly because of energy. So we will look at what we can do to be more efficient in terms of how we're using energy, both on street lighting and in other parts of our estate. So it is a live thing. We have. I mean, I know from a personal memory when we reduced some street lighting in Poole Borough Council. Some people was really positive about that, and some less positive. So just to reassure people, we have done that historically, and we've got a good evidence base of what works, what doesn't work. So we will be looking at that as we move forward. Okay, I've got a question about future places. So can anyone please explain why money has been wasted on future places? And that's from Glyn Dixon. So thanks, Glyn. Future Places has been created with a really clear aim of supporting our vision for Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, having ambition for what this place can be. And I think it's really important that we look forward for the next 10 years and try and create that really resilient economy. Because the vibrancy of our communities, the strength of our economy, the skills of our people, all the wealth of our culture and quality of our infrastructure is going to be massively important to how we deliver quality of life for residents going forward. So Future Places have been we've just recruited Lord Bob Kerslake, who is ex-head of the civil service, effectively a national lead in terms of regeneration. We've recruited a lady called Gail Mayhew, who is the MD. So she's worked on the government's Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission. So we're getting some of the best people across the country to come in and be attracted to work in our communities and our place. And we've got £3 billion worth of assets and projects. We're in council ownership, and I think it's vitally important that we have the right team of people to look at how we can build those going forward. Okay, so in terms of some other questions we've got, a question from Juliet Marash around green waste. How can you justify the extreme cost of garden rubbish collection from 46 in 22 to £60 in 23? I touched on this a little bit earlier, Julia, as a general point, in terms of saying we are looking to make sure our fees and charges, our services that we charge for, are going up by the rate of inflation. If we didn't do that, then it would be for the wider taxpayer to subsidise them, and we don't think that's right. We think if somebody wants to take a service, one, it needs to be charged at the right price, which we're looking at, and also that because inflation's gone up, we need to make sure our prices are going up, so we can protect the people who aren't using those services and protect them, the most vulnerable. There's a specific point in here we missed because of the COVID pandemic. We missed 2 bin services in August 21. So a discount of about £5 was taken off the standard price in 22. So the price was about £51, not £46. So effectively, it's close to an inflation pay rise. I use the service. I have done for a number of years. I think it's fantastic. It's not a statutory service. It's not something we're giving any money by government to provide or asked to provide. So if people want to take it, please do. For me, £60 is somebody coming and clearing all that garden waste. I think it's great value. Ultimately, people will decide. But Julia, hopefully that's some rationale about why that's actually that price has just gone up. Anybody who does want a green bin, please do contact us. It's a really good way of getting your garden waste, and actually also you can get more than one as well. So if people have got more garden waste and struggling to fit it all in, then you're welcome to get extra ones as well. Okay, we've got a question from Dave Griffiths about council finances. So let me read that out. So I've heard the council are £70 million in debt. The council have a substantial asset in Mallard Road retail park. Why can't this be sold to claw back a serious amount of money? There is also the Boscombe regeneration project. I agree it should be done, but with the state of the finances, maybe now isn't the time to doing it. Dave, a really valid question, important question. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, a couple of things in it really. That's not true in terms of the £70 million in debt. I think what that number will be relating to is what we've asked the government to consider funding our transformation programme through allowing us to borrow to fund it. So effectively, what we've done since we've come together as BCP Council is we've transformed. We've put 3 councils into one. We've already saved £50 million a year recurring, and we've got a project to save another around about £50 million a year recurring going forward. That second part of that will cost money, investment in systems and people to help us to deliver that saving, and that is effectively our transformation expenditure. We've asked government to consider funding that. What they've said, Dave, is that they'll allow us to borrow for the first year, effectively, of that, which is about £20 million. We're actually looking currently, and we've got a paper coming out, I believe it's on Monday, a budget paper coming out on Monday, which looks to balance our budget for 23-24, which will be really, a fantastic effort, because as I said earlier, we've got a £25 million hit to this year and a 30 million next year, and we've got a surplus. We've now turned it around to be projecting a surplus this year of over 5 million, and going forward we're balanced for next year as well, actually. So absolutely, the council aren't in 70 million pounds of debt, but we are trying to work out ways to fund our transformation program, and borrowing from government is one option for that. Another option is capital receipts, so selling things. So absolutely. So in the report we're bringing out on Monday, we will be looking at some how we can deliver, rather than borrow from government, how we can sell some assets. Mallard Road is an interesting one. I've said we shouldn't sell our assets where we can, because effectively we need to, key assets we want to use to regenerate our communities and make sure we pass on more assets to future generations. So we're trying to work very, very hard to negotiate with government where we don't have to sell many of those assets. We can use them through future places to regenerate our communities. But non-strategic assets, like purely investment assets like Mallard Road, will be under consideration to see whether we sell or not. So hopefully that answers your question. Slightly complicated. No, not to 70 million pounds of debt. We are looking forward to a balanced budget position, detailing that next Monday, and we are looking at some asset sales as well, non-strategic, non-regeneration assets there. Okay, so last one that I've got in front of me now is from Jeanette Hesselden, come through from Facebook, and it's about the Magna Road work. So why have you allowed Magna Road to take so long, taking 14 weeks instead of 8? All I can say there, Jeanette, so this is part of the Dorset Transforming Cities Fund, which is a Department for Transport funded project. So that has taken longer. It is now complete. So we apologise, for the delays in completing the Magna works, at the junction with Camford Magna. The temporary traffic lights have now been removed. So it's moved forward. It took longer than we'd hoped it would have done, but we're grateful for the funding from national government to be able to fund it. Okay, so let me now go to some of the questions that have come in more recently, and see where we can pick some of those up. Apologies, some of them are more specifically cost of living, so I'll have a look. Okay, so Lee Atkins, just while we're talking about the Transform and Travel 104, and I think there's another one above that you're referring to. You're asking if we've contacted central government to tell them how urgently money is needed for other things, not cycle lanes. So Lee, the Transform and Travel money, about £100 million has come down from about £80 million from government, and then you've got the Dorset contributions. So effectively that has been money put forward for a long time, and so it's used for capital projects for that. It's already effectively spent as a planned works out there. We are making regular conversations with government, talking about how, we've been really in detailed discussions with DLUX, it's now called, talking about how we're looking to fund local government going forward, what support we need, what flexibilities we need. So we're absolutely trying to make that case for government, but specifically the point around the Transform and Travel money, that money is already allocated. Okay, let me see where we get today. We've got questions about garden bins. I've already talked. I've answered that question, so I won't go off and answer that again. Okay. Yeah, again, we've got some questions about prescriptions, quite a lot of questions about prescriptions and medication today. So we make a point of raising those, at a government level, is part of our regular, we meet with our MPs regularly, and we try and make sure that they're, up to speed with in terms of what we're hearing. And that is definitely something that we significant hearing today. So we will raise those, try and, put those points together and then raise them for you. Okay, fine. Just trying to get through some of the other questions. Okay. Yeah, so we've talked about cycle lanes. We know, so our position on cycle lanes is we've got money from government to deliver that. We've actually really trying to pivot that to listening to residents about cycle lanes. So we've got some really positive emergency travel in the last couple of years. Cycle lanes have been opened, and we've listened to ward councillors on the occasion, but ward councillors who should know their communities well. We've had a groundswell of opinion. We've changed those, so we do feel like we've genuinely been listening and reactive to local residents' concerns around cycle lanes. Really positive to get people moving. We think that we've used this phrase, "Your travel, your choice." If you want to be able to use a car, great. You should be able to do that on an uncongested network, and one way to do that is the people who don't want to be travelling in cars, who would rather be walking or cycling, to allow them the ability to come off of it. So okay, so hopefully that answers, rather than anything specifically, more generally about okay, so we've got a question from Tracy Harris at 1:15. What's happening about Beta Park area, and when will ideas be completed on this? Okay, yeah, thank you, Tracy. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of work has been happening in around a lot of our parks. We've got a green infrastructure strategy that we're doing. We've got some additional work going in terms of the play facilities and upgrading those across there. We're still in a phase around Beta where we're looking to build forward our thinking on that. So again, if anybody has any thoughts or comments on that, we would very much like to hear from them. We've got through our internal green infrastructure strategy and through future places, looking at how we can regenerate for wider areas. We're bringing forward a plan which we're hoping to be able to deliver before next March, which will start to be feedback in terms of what the strategy is. So we're not very far away from that, Tracy, and we'll get that published shortly. Okay, got a specific question about council tax, from Nancy Sabata 1:15. How can a council make sure that when a couple break up, they divide the bill instead of chasing both for full payment? Nancy, I honestly don't know the answer to that. So what we'll do, we will look into it and see, and if we can come back to you separately on that. If anybody's got any specific or more personal issues that they need us to go and investigate sort of offline, again, I'll put my email address back up. So that's drew.mello at BCP Council, .gov.uk. So please, if there are any more sensitive, matters, we're very, very happy to look at them. And I totally understand in those sort of relationship breakdowns situations, they will be difficult. Okay, so let me get to. So Karen Clark, the latest art installation for Lansdowne improvements was partially funded with 4 million for improvement, but with an additional 2.6 million from BCP. Where did BCP get 2.6 million? I've asked before, but been ignored. Karen, thank you for your question. Yeah, so a significant amount of work has gone into Lansdowne. We were successful in bidding through the local economic partnership for funding for that project. Largely it's been funded through our LEP contributions. LEPs, so we've got a Dorset local enterprise partnership. They've received funds historically from government. bid for them, and then have to deliver them. So the majority of that funding was through there. Whether it's specifically with 2.6 million, I don't have those figures to hand, but effectively that would have been government money. Is a broader point, Caroline, about what we're looking to do with our assets more generally. And we answered the question about future places earlier on. So we own a huge amount of land and buildings across the conurbation, and effectively, what we're saying we should be able to do, we should be able to regenerate those. We'd love to get some money from government, but if we can make these projects and these buildings work and be able to be regenerated properly, quite often actually they'll be positive, for our finances as well. So very much looking forward to use our assets to regenerate them, to make money for the council, rather than getting the point of saying, well, where's the money coming from to regenerate it? A lot of these things should be able to make money and make us money, and also make future generations money going forward. So, but specifically answer to your question in terms of Lansdowne, that was for the majority of that money came from the government through the local enterprise partnership. Okay, so we've got a question from Catalin about how can a 117, how can a council put a stop on the rental market for families to be able to afford those prices? Compared with other parts of the country, rent is at least double here, and the council just left it in the hands of landlords and estate agency. Okay, fine. This is a really, really fundamental and important conversation I think we need to be having. With very limited powers in terms of what a council can do specifically in relation to the rental market, but there's quite a lot of things that play into that. One of the things is, we're really, keen and desperate to be building more homes. We've got a good example of that happening now in Hamworthy. So we've got about 160 new flats that we're building, and we're funding to be built. So that not just means that we'll be homes for local people now, but also it means it's an asset for future generations to inherit. So I think we need to be more active in terms of building homes, and for instance, that scheme in Hamworthy, we'll be completely in charge of effectively setting the rents of those, and also the fact that we can keep them to be rented locally. So we are going to be doing what we can there. More broadly, we're making representations to government about affordable homes. There's a particular point we're looking at doing in one of our developments where we think we've got a really interesting model that gets more affordable homes there, and we're looking forward to bring that soon through future places. And that will be in and around Constitution Hill, a site we're really keen on. And actually, just on Constitution Hill, there's been some feedback about really high rise there. Absolutely not. We've been really clear. Our lead member for Poole Regeneration, Steve Barron, has been really clear that site needs to be sympathetically built up. So that's exactly what we'll be doing, and listening to the likes of Councillor Barron. So in terms of answering your question, we just need to be more active. There's interesting legislation being published around second homes and our ability for councils to charge 200% council tax for second homes. That is something, we've got a huge amount of Airbnb homes, which then takes homes out of the local market, because we're such a popular tourist destination. So that's a discussion I think we need to be having. Ultimately, do we try and make it more difficult for people to have second homes in BCP or not? Is a discussion to be had, but there's a myriad of things here. We need to be active in that discussion. We need to have that discussion as a community. We need to make sure we're building more homes, and that's absolutely what we're doing. And future places are being a big part of that, because they're really driving some scale towards what we're able to deliver. Okay, let's find some others. Yeah, okay. Fine. So we've got some questions around cycling more generally. We've been really positive about trying to make sure people can use the road network properly. We've seen we've been a pilot area for scooters as well. We've then played that information back to government as well. We need to find different ways of getting about, and as long as we find the balance, and as long as it's from community led, then I think we're hitting that right balance. Okay, trying to find some questions that aren't relating to cycling. Okay, so Tracy Harris, question. Thank you for your reply. we really need a youth club somewhere, because young kids need much to be off the streets and learning new things that can help them later in life, jobs. This is a really good comment, and I completely agree with it. Effectively, we talked a bit earlier on about how we can become a more enabling, council, and how we can work out what's really strong in the community. We also had a question. We had a question earlier from Gateway Church. We know, organisations like Gateway runs fantastically successful, youth provision. We're been meeting people like the Poole Sea Cadets, who do fantastic, youth work, and I know a myriad of other people do as well. So Tracy, what we're looking to do is to see how we can support them, to support organisations that are running fantastic youth provisions now to grow and do more. The Poole Sea Cadets, really good example. I believe I've got the numbers right. It's around about 60 people that they have on at any one point, but they've got a waiting list of similar size. So if we can support them through buildings, etc., then we can get them fantastic extra youth provision, and that's something we're looking at doing as well. And we've got Councillor Jane Kelly who's looking at that now. Partly that might be in terms of utilising some of our existing buildings. We might be supporting them through capital, through our Futures Fund, to do Futures Fund, which is £50 million of capital we put into our budget to allow community projects and otherwise projects that didn't have a business case. Youth work effectively would be in that zone, so we can actually get behind and support the community. So we're trying to say, actually, let's work out what's strong, what works. Let's work out what kids want to be doing. We've got massively successful BMX club down in I think it's Iford, regionally and nationally competitive, desperate to put on more youth provision, youth service. So how can we facilitate them? We help them a little bit with the national championships had this year, but how can we be much bolder about supporting them? So to some extent, probably maybe a pivot away from like a more formal youth club, but working at how we can support volunteer networks who are working really well with children, and how we can be really ambitious about making sure there's stuff for our kids to do, and we're looking at that in a moment and hope to bring forward some things on that shortly. Okay, fine, let's see what else we've got. Landlords are preventing people getting a property ladder. Yeah, we've talked about that. We've Zoe Oakley, 122, probably response to my, 160 homes we're building in Hamworthy. Flats aren't proper homes. Homes with gardens is what is needed. Yeah, look, my view, Zoe, and I hear what you're saying, but we just need a significant amount more homes for people, because young people can't afford to buy houses, and you often can't even afford to rent houses. And it's not just young people. This is a problem for everybody. So we need to provide more homes and housing across the conurbation. My view is that we need to be more active in that space. We need to build more. If we can buy more, then we're more able to choose who goes in there and set the rents appropriately. And while we're doing that, we're fixing a problem for now. We're also giving more assets to our next generation as they come forward. So yeah, of course, we need to build more traditional homes as well. But one of the things we're keen on is protecting the green belt. I think we really need to stand up for that. I think it's really really important, and our green spaces. So an answer to that is urban densification, effectively. So where in more like town centre environments or built up environments, you do utilise flats. So Zoe, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a mixture. And we need to be doing that whilst we're also mindful of where we're building homes for the future. Okay, I've only got a minute or two left, so let me just see if there's any sort of topics I haven't answered. Okay, Poole Christmas lights, Lawrence Lolo, from December to January. Due to the high cost of energy, how long are they going to be on, and why? Starting in November. Don't want to be passed on the cost, as we're paying enough already. Okay, Lawrence. Well, we're trying to do our absolute best to keep council tax low. We've done that twice now, effectively with various different council tax freezes. So we're trying to make sure we're not passing on the costs for people for more general things like pool lights. We've got a different view even than that, even going further. So we've got a fantastic Bournemouth Christmas proposition through the town centres that brings thousands and thousands of people in. we recognise that we needed to do more across the conurbation. So this year, apologies, we're launching our Poole Maritime Festival. Lights Festival, which is at Christmas. So we're actually trying to do more. We're trying to make sure it's a really vibrant place with a lot going on. We are working out where we can move to LED lighting. So I know, something we did in Poole Borough Council, we've moved all of our street lamps to LEDs. We're trying to make sure our costs are lower. We've just effectively about to publish on Monday how we're balancing our budget for next year. And that is being mindful to things like that. But we appreciate your feedback. I think most people really value a bit of positivity, a bit of Christmas spirit as well. So we're trying to make sure in balancing the budget, we're not stopping that, and we're still investing in our communities. And actually, if you look down at Poole Quay, lower High Street, there, the old town, I think that's absolutely, doing really well, thriving. We've got many more things coming forward with that. Again, future places at the heart of leading some of the public consultation on it as well. So, apologies, I've run out of time. Got a few questions that we haven't been able to get to. What we'll do is we'll get myself a team to go through those and to come back to the ones, particularly if we haven't answered them more broadly in other questions. So, thank you very, very much for your time today, your questions. I really want to spend just a second thanking again our fantastic panel of people we had. I was joined by today, so Tom Lund from Citizens Advice, fantastic, really added some value. Erica Sloper, at Poole Waste Not Want Not, and Daisy Carr, community food coordinator here at BCP Council. So thank you very much to those. Thank you to anybody else in the community offering service or volunteering. Please, we will check our websites, our cost of living website particularly, as we're going to be updating things on that regularly. There's quite a bit coming forward in the next couple of weeks. We heard about the government effectively, have confirmed that that they're extending their support past September to next March, which is the Household Support Fund. We're working up what information we can and how we're going to get that sent out. We're doing the work around the warm places and where both our warm places are for people to come in a day, and also where other volunteers are. Again, thanks so much about the Gateway Church group who are offering that as well. So huge amount going on. There's a lot that this is a difficult times for everybody. This is when communities do always come together. We need to support each other. If there's anything else we can and should be doing, please, we would like to hear about it. Thank you ever so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you next month as we have one of our next extended sessions. Thank you.